Good evening and welcome to the Do Tell Story Swap of Sonoma County. My name is Katie Mangan and I'm going to be your MC this evening, and we are in the very best hands of Vicki Ness, who is our technical director. We're very grateful to have her with us, doing such a great job. The evening format is we're going to start with stories like we always do. We'll have a short break around about 8 o'clock. And then after the break, there will be a prompt, and we'll tell you what the prompt is for the break. And then Meg and Vicki will have announcements, and then we'll have more stories. This is just a reminder that stories are to be told and not read. 5 to 7 minutes. The longest should be about 10. And if you have a longer story, maybe let me know, and then we can put you towards the end. But I think we're all set for a wonderful evening. And our first teller is Rose Evans. I'd like to welcome Rose to the Do Tell storytelling stage.
Owens. Okay. This is a story in progress, so stolen ladybugs. I opened my door and looked out the front. It was a beautiful sunshiny day. I looked down at Bertha Louise, my big ladybug rock. Oh, the 5 little ladybugs, Albert and Betty and Cindy and Darling Eugene, were gone. They were missing, and they were always nestled right there in front of Bertha Louise. I looked over at the hollyhocks. Tobias was gone. Kinamushiona was all missing from by the edge. In fact, every single one of my ladybugs were gone. The kids in the neighborhood call my house the ladybug house. And how can it be the ladybug house if there aren't any ladybugs here? Should I call 911? Maybe I should call the police department. I imagine that I'm calling the police department. Hello, police department. Lieutenant Snodgrass speaking. My ladybug rocks have been stolen. Every one of them, they're gone. Your ladybug rocks? Oh, yes, my ladybug rocks. All 17 of them, except for Bertha Louise. She's about 18 inches big and 12 inches tall and weighs about maybe 150 to 200 pounds. And she's still there, but all the rest of my ladybugs, they're gone. They've been stolen. Now, and you are calling to report this to the police department? Of course. That's your job, to find stolen things. I need my ladybugs, all 17 of them. My kids help me. We paint ladybug rocks. And we paint them, and we name them A through Z. And we give them away to our friends with a registered ladybug certificate. Everyone says they know where my friends live because they see my ladybug rocks in the front yard. But they're all gone now. Every single one of them. You say you've named the ladybug rocks? Yes, from A to Z. Well, what about Q and X and Z? Well, that's Quizzola and Exasperilla and ZN. But they're gone. They're gone. I imagine that I hear silence at the other end of the line. And then I hear her voice a little bit softer, and she's saying, "This lady's nuts. She's calling about stolen ladybug rocks. She's a little bit crazy, I think." Enough is enough. I mentally hang up on my imaginary phone conversation. Calling the police is not an option. I decide to do a little bit of detective work. My neighbor right next door has a 5-year-old grandson living with her. Now, I would think that Zach might have taken those rocks, except that Okina Mushiono, which means big bug lady in Japanese, is a big, hefty rock. Too big for a little 5-year-old to carry away. But maybe he knows something about it. So I go next door and I walk up the steps. And I open the screen door and walk across the covered porch. And I knock on the door. Grandma comes to the door. May I talk to Zach? Zach! Yes? Zach, my ladybug rocks are missing. I didn't take them. I haven't seen them. I didn't say that you did. But if you should happen to see them, would you tell me? Well, I might have seen them. Show me. We go down the sidewalk. Zach is running in front. His little legs are just running as fast as he can go. Grandma and I follow a little bit slower. We go all the way down the block to the corner. My neighbor in the corner has a great big tree. It is a huge tree. And there's ivy all around the base of it. And it's been trimmed back. I lean down and I look. And there in that cavern underneath that ivy, there they are. All 17 of my ladybug rocks. They look like they're having a party. Or maybe a ladybug convention. Okay, you guys. Party's over. Time to go home. But how am I going to get you home? I have an idea, says Zach. He goes running back up the side, all the way to the other end of the block to Grandma's house. And in a few minutes, he comes down and he is riding one of those tractors with a trailer hooked onto it. His little pudgy legs are just going around and around and around as fast as he can go. And he gets down there. And you know what? Every single one of those ladybug blocks fits in the back of that trailer. And Zach slowly, carefully pedals them back up the street to my house. And we unload all those ladybug rocks on the lawn. And I get busy putting them back. I take Albert and Betty and Cindy and Darla and Eugene, and I nestle them right in front of Bertha Louise. They look just the way that they should be. And I wave goodbye to Grandma and Zach, and I smile. I'll let Grandma deal with the consequences. And that's the story of my stolen ladybugs. One of them to introduce to you. This is Stephen. And he sits over there by the hedge in my yard. And his name is printed on the bottom. He's actually Super Stephen. And my name, because I sign every one of my ladybug rocks. Now, I forgot to tell you that during COVID, I mean, after all, I was sheltering at home and my ladybug rocks were stuck at home with me. And so I made masks for every one of my ladybug rocks. Well, for Albert and Daddy and Cindy and Darla and Eugene and Bertha Louise. And there was one time a little girl came by and I looked to see what she was doing. And she had found a little ladybug rock, not one that I'd painted, but she found a different one. And she brought it to my house because it belonged at the ladybug house, which is how I learned. Now, Vicki asked me when I was practicing this story where I got my idea for this story. And it's all true. Every single bit of this story is true. And that's my ladybug story.
Rose, thank you so much for sharing that. That was wonderful. Really charming. Very cool. So now let us welcome Renu to the stage.
Hold on, I have to find her.
That's fine. I can't.
There we go. There we are.
Good evening, good morning, everyone. Yeah, Mrs. Sundar lived in a nice, comfortable house in a quaint little town. Her husband had passed on, but she was considered lucky because both her daughters lived in the same town and she could visit them as often as she wanted to. Her older daughter Radhika lived towards the north of the town and her younger daughter Malavika lived to the south of the town. So all she had to do was get onto a bus, visit either one of her daughters. You would think that Mrs. Sundar would be quite a happy person. Initially she was, but as she grew older, she became worried, a worrier, all the time getting into it. Oh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen? Every time it rained, she would cry and cry about her younger daughter. Why? Because her younger daughter had a business of making puppets. Puppets are these large, very thin things that are made to go with a meal. They are rolled out very thin and dried in the sunlight. So every time it rained, she would say, "My poor Radhika, how will she dry her puppets? Oh no, oh no, why can't it stop raining? Why can't it stop raining?" She would cry. And when it was sunny, she would think of her older daughter and cry. Why? Because her older daughter had a business of making umbrellas. "Oh no, it's so sunny. Who will buy my daughter's umbrellas? Oh God, who will buy my daughter's umbrella?" She would cry. And every time she went out, whoever she saw should latch onto them and say, "Poor things, my daughters are suffering, they're struggling." But actually, that was not the fact at all. Both her daughters were doing extremely well, they were happy, they were comfortable, living a good life. But their mother was such a nonsense sometimes. She was such a nuisance because every time she would be crying. And soon people started avoiding her. Every time they saw Mrs. Sundar coming down the street, they would disappear. And soon she was left with no friends at all. No one she could mourn and groan to. So one day, as she was going by, she saw the temple and she went inside. It was a quiet time and nobody was around. So she sat in front of the deity and she started to cry. "Oh God, why are you doing this to me? Today is such a cloudy day. It's not going to be raining and it's not sunny either. Poor daughters, my poor daughters, how will they survive? Oh my God, please help me. Please bless me. Please bless my daughters." She cried and cried and cried. Tears are pouring down her cheeks. And after she had stopped, a priest who had been sitting behind the temple came around and he looked at her. And he sat down next to her. He placed his hand gently on her back and said, "Amma, I have been sitting at the back doing my prayers, and I couldn't help but listen to you. Why are you crying so much? Is there a problem?" "I don't know. Nobody ever listens to me nowadays. I'm very, very upset. God is not helping me at all. My poor daughters." "What happened to your daughters?" "Well, you see, today is such a cloudy day. My poor girls, my Radhika will not be able to sell her umbrellas. And my younger one, she cannot make puppets today." "Oh, is that the problem?" Yes, you see, it's such a big problem. Don't you understand?" And she started crying again. So he said, "Listen now, there's a very simple solution. Will you listen to me?" "Okay, nobody has offered me a solution till now. Tell me." "Well, when it is sunny, think of your daughter, younger daughter, and be happy because it's sunny. She can make lots and lots of puppets. Don't think about your older daughter. Think only about your younger one. Think how many puppets she can make. And when it's raining, think about your older daughter. Think how many umbrellas she will be selling. And don't worry, if it is sunny and you're thinking about your older daughter, imagine she can take rest, she can go on a holiday, and she can spend time with her children, or maybe she can even think of new designs for umbrellas. And if it is a very rainy day and you're thinking about your younger daughter, imagine this is the time when she can relax, when she can maybe go on a holiday, or she can come and spend some time with you, and she can bring the grandchildren also. Have you thought of it like that?" "Oh, really?" "Yes. Try it out and see, Amma. And when it's on a cloudy day like this, why don't you visit or have them both visit you? Tell them to come over, cook a nice lunch for them, enjoy yourself." "Oh, okay. I never thought of it like this. I will give it a try. Okay, I should not cry now, isn't it? I should not cry. Okay, okay. It's a cloudy day. I will call my daughters and I will ask them to come to my house." "Yes, Amma, try it and see, and then come back and tell me whether it worked." And so Mrs. Sundar, from that day on, started thinking the way the priest had advised her. Every time it was sunny, she would think about her younger daughter and feel happy. "Oh, today my daughter will be making lots and lots of puppets. And my older daughter can come and visit me now, or I will go and visit her." And she would go and visit her older daughter. And like that, Mrs. Sundar became happy and started chatting and talking and laughing. And soon her friends came back and she had a very, very happy life from that day. Thank you for listening.
Manu, that's a wonderful story. Is that one of yours?
No. I've heard the story from somebody else. Thank you.
No, it's great, but you tell it with great animation. I love that. And when she was crying, and then the priest and his great advice, but also when you were drying the tears from your face. I mean, it was, we were there with you, and just tell the stories so beautifully. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look forward to your stories. That's perfect. All right. So now let us welcome to the stage Sharon Elwell.
Can you hear me? Yes. All right. This is a true historical story. My brother, who lives here in Montana, is a cattleman kind of a guy, and he is of the opinion that California is a different country. They do things differently there. And there's probably no better example of that than the fact that from 1859 to 1880, the city of San Francisco had an emperor. In 1859, Joshua Abraham Norton became disaffected, disillusioned, distressed with goings on in Washington. And so he simply wrote an edict and dissolved the US Congress and declared himself the legitimate ruler of the United States. Interestingly enough, about the same time, King Kamehameha the fifth of Hawaii was also disaffected and disillusioned and unhappy with Washington. And so he actually recognized Emperor Norton as the legitimate leader of our country. And Norton spent much time trying to contact other international leaders to make that connection, but nobody ever answered his mail. When Prince Albert died, he wrote to Queen Victoria asking her, explaining that if she married him, the rift between the two countries would be well taken care of. But she never answered his mail either. Fortunately, he had lots to do on a domestic level. He spent a lot of time writing edicts. One, for example, said that if you said Frisco instead of San Francisco, you were committing a misdemeanor subject to a $25 fine. He spent a lot of time paying attention to the streets, the sidewalks, the streetcars, and the things that needed his care. When the 1870 census came up, the census taker actually wrote Joshua Norton, and for occupation, she put emperor. But after emperor, in parentheses, she put insane. Well, the police chief eventually came to a decision that he was derelict in his duty to let someone who was very tenuously connected with reality loose on the streets all the time. And so he had him picked up and put into an asylum for the mentally ill. Well, there are 4 newspapers in San Francisco, and each of them was diluted, flooded with letters from people saying, you can't arrest our emperor. And one woman said, he has shed no blood. He has harmed no one. He has robbed no one. He has despoiled no land. That's more than can be said for the other leaders of our country. If he wants to be emperor, let him. So eventually the public prevailed and the police chief had him released. And the emperor, being a gracious man, gave him a full pardon and went on with his work. He printed his own currency. He had currency from 50 cents to $10. And it was accepted on streetcars and ferries and restaurants and everywhere that he went. Today, Emperor Norton's currency sells for as much as $10,000 to collectors, but he never reached that in his lifetime. The main thing that he was concerned with was that he thought there ought to be a suspension bridge between San Francisco and the East Bay cities. And he lobbied for that and worked on that for some time, but it never came to fruition in his lifetime. Today, there are people still working to have the Bay Bridge renamed for Emperor Norton. And it's still a matter of controversy because the East Bay people have their own ideas. And so eventually it ended up just being the Bay Bridge. But the people of San Francisco loved and supported their emperor. When the Presidio got all new uniforms, they gave him the outdated uniforms, and he went about the city with a blue uniform with gold epaulets and a band leader's hat that he often put peacock feathers or turkey feathers in. And for that whole 21 years, he ruled and reigned within the city. So when my brother says California is a different country, they do things differently there. I see what he's talking about.
Sharon, that's such a great story. I love it. Thank you. What an amazing man, and to think that he proposed to Queen Victoria. I mean, had she accepted, that would have been amazing. But I love the public outcry when he was imprisoned. It's just so wonderful that people stood up, like people are standing up now, actually. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
And the foresight for the bridge, which we know as the Bay Bridge, and sadly that it's not named Emperor Norton Bridge.
Well, you could get in the committee if you're interested. We could still work.
Oh, okay. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you so much, Sharon. Always have a great story to tell us. All right. So now, Vicky, would you like to tell your story now, or have I put you on the spot, or shall I ask Genevieve, who has arrived?
Maybe, what do you think? Should we just, since we only have 2 more storytellers or 3, maybe we should, do you want me to do mine? Then we'll take a break. How's that?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Are you happy with that on spur of the moment?
What the heck? Yeah, sure.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. This is a silly story, so whatever. Ichabod read the sentence all over again. He couldn't believe what he was reading. It was wrong. Oh, it was so wrong. His favorite mystery writer had killed off the only transcendent, beautiful, self-sacrificing character in the whole book. Why, she could have killed off the philandering, willy-nilly husband, but no. She could have killed off the scheming wife, but no. She could have killed off a whole dinner party of loathsome aristocrats, but no. She chose to kill off the banana. It was a beautiful piece of fruit. Oh, it radiated color, self-sacrificing and ready to give and give of itself, and it met a terrible death. Something to do with breakfast breads and cream cheese, and oh, it was too horrible to think about. And the fact that his author, the one he loved, would sacrifice such a beautiful spirit for the purient interest, the sadistic pleasure of the public. Wait, that's something akin to going after Bambi with a hand grenade. Huh? That's what it's like. Or killing off Tinkerbell with a fly swatter. You don't do that. Oh, he felt so horrible. And it made him so angry that he spread out his hand on the page. And like an eagle's claw, he crimped up that page and ripped it out of the book. Yo, but then he realized, of course, he was in the library. Yes, no, this isn't good. So he closed the book and he petted the cover like it was a trembling animal. Mm. It said, "What the Hell? A New Mystery by Georgette Heyer." He put the slender volume back in the stacks. And the page. Oh, he stuffed it into his pocket. And he walked out of the library quietly, hoping nobody had seen him. But he was so very depressed, so terribly unhappy. The death of this noble thing and the public clamoring for its very substance, for a breakfast bread. He didn't go out anymore until one day his doorbell rang and it was a friend of his. The friend had something behind his back and he said, "Hey, Icky, I got something for you." And he whipped out 3 beautiful bananas. They were perfect specimens. And he put them in Ichabod's hands. Ichabod held them like they were a baby. And the friend said, "So, Ick, listen, you take care of those bananas and we'll see you around, okay? Come on out then." And he left. And Ichabod thanked him weakly and closed the door. But now, what did he have now in his hands? He had a conundrum. You see, he could put them in a fancy bowl on the kitchen table, yes, and watch time creep up like a filthy, degenerate rat and chew away at its beauty until it was nothing but compost. That's what he could do. Or he could get up every morning and just pick one arbitrary banana and sacrifice it to his cereal bowl. That's what he could do. He had 2 terrible choices. No, he had a third choice. He went out to the hardware store and he got a clear plastic bowl that he put over the bananas. And then he got his hobby drill and he drilled a hole in one side and he drilled a hole in the other. And in this side, there was an aquarium pump that pushed in fresh air. And this one pulled out the old air with the ethanol gases. And sure enough, why, the bananas never aged. Every morning he'd peer around the doorway to look at them, and there they were gorgeous. He had stopped death in its tracks. They would stay beautiful and noble forever. He felt so good about himself that he took himself out for a walk. Well, the problem was that the Grim Reaper had other ideas. The Grim Reaper wanted the souls of those bananas, and it was past due. So he showed up at Ichabod's door and tried the doorknob. But of course it was locked. And the Grim Reaper remembered that Ichabod was a bit of a pill, the kind of man who locks the front door before he walks down to the sidewalk to get the mail, that kind of man. So he rummaged around in his voluminous black robes, flying like a cyclone, and then he came up with just what he needed. A credit card. He jimmied the lock and he walked right in. He took the souls of those bananas, sashayed right out of the door without even saying so much as a thank you. Well, when Ichabod came home, oh, it was a terrible sight. The bananas, their skins were brown with black spots, and they split open to reveal rotting white flesh. An animal horror rose up in him, a scream that cursed around in his body and came out his mouth, a horrible howl that shook the foundation of the house and cracked the windows and braided up the chimney in various undulations until it got up into the sky. And there it shook the heavens and then fell down as a gentle mist of tiny little droplets of doom and despair. Well, Mildred, his neighbor, was out gardening and she noticed, oh, doom and despair. Well, oh, it's from Ichabod's house. So she went right over and she sat with him like a good neighbor would and talked to him. And finally she said, The only thing to do now is to give them a decent burial. I think you should put them around that rose bush in the front, the one that hasn't bloomed since your wife died. Roses love bananas. It's the potassium. Why, it would be a good thing. Ichabod said, okay. And so they dug a little trench and they buried the precious bodies in there and covered it up. And they sat there in their little lawn chairs and looked at the sight in silence. And then Ichabod stood up and he said a few words about the nobility and beauty in his brief meeting with these wonderful spirits. And he sat down. And then they sang a few gentle banana hymns. Yes, we have no bananas. We have no bananas today. But through the tears, everybody, the world seemed to grow a little warmer and Ichabod felt slightly healed. Well, close to the end of the summer, that rose bush exploded in blooms. Ooh, salmon, pinky, orangey blooms with a fragrance that rose up and traveled all around the neighborhood, mugging people when they got out of their cars or when they stepped off of the school bus. Oh, roses. Ooh. The flowers were so bright, they were blinding. And Ichabod thought to himself, those are my banana roses. The bananas made the roses. Well, one Sunday, a beautiful afternoon, he came Charlene down the street, and she's a normal, wonderful, decent human being, solid and good as the day is long, if not the prettiest girl, and maybe not the most vivacious. But her eyes were rimmed in pink, and her mouth was all wibble wobbly, like worms left behind on the sidewalk after a rain. Well, Ichabod had to ask her what on earth is wrong. And she told him that the love of her life had left her that very weekend, and nobody would ever love her again, ever. And she felt so badly that she told them at the hardware store where she worked that she wouldn't be back until Thursday. She needed 3 days to just die. Well, Ichabod, who fully understood this because his wife had died, ran into the kitchen, got some clippers, came back out and clipped off a beautiful bouquet of roses, which he gave to her. Oh, she felt better already. She went home and she put the roses in a vase in the window, and the fragrance rose up, crawling through all the rooms up into the rafters, saturating the walls so that the very walls undulated and hummed little melodies to themselves. But when the sunlight hit the roses, the whole room radiated a beautiful salmon pink, and Charlene felt that she was protected and safe, like in a giant seashell, and nothing would ever hurt her again. And she healed. And in fact, she felt so good that she went back to work the next day on Wednesday. And she was at the counter at the hardware store scanning in the gopher wires and the garden gloves and the emitters for the watering. And this man on the line suddenly fell right over. Well, she vaulted over the counter, ran to him, felt for his pulse. And she told everybody, stand back. Everybody stand back. You give me your sweater. You call 911. And then she commenced a rigorous campaign of CPR until the paramedics came, and they told her that she had saved the man's life. And it was a fact that nobody in that hardware store knew CPR except for her. She had saved that man's life and nobody else could have done it. Well, the next day in the newspaper, there was a big picture of Charlene, the hero. Oh, she would never be lonely again. Not one more day in her life would she be lonely. Everybody wanted to know the hero. And Ichabod was reading the article. Oh, he thought it was wonderful. But then he got to the part where it was the roses that caused her to go into work in the first place. And had she not had the roses that caused her to go into work, why, that man would have died. And all of a sudden, something opened up in him. And he could see far off into the deepest, darkest pockets of time where human eyes are not allowed to go. Back when matter and energy first danced with time, and things were born and erupted all over the universe, including some banana plants that grew in the Caribbean that fruited bananas, that in this particular case caused a banana man to climb up and harvest the bananas and sell them so he could feed his family, and so that they got on the container boat, so they went across the ocean, and so that some minion on the ship could check off bananas and get smiled at by his boss, so that they could get to the greengrocer, so that the greengrocer could put them in front of his store so everybody could see how wonderful a store he had. And by gosh, if Ichabod's friend didn't buy those bananas and give them to him so that he had them, and in his hands those noble bananas died. But wait, they moved on and became roses. And from there, oh, they moved on and on and on. And in fact, if he thought about it, why, it's possible that all the people who read this newspaper article, thousands of them, maybe half a dozen of those people, well, maybe half a dozen of those people will step out of their comfort zone and do something of great courage and compassion that they would never normally do, but they would be inspired. And the ripples of the effects of that would ripple out and affect others, and ripple out and go far over the shining horizon of the future, far beyond where human eyes could see. And that's when it occurred to him that the noble and the beautiful and the sacred do not stand for being still. It's a spirit that moves. If it didn't move, we wouldn't see it. Why, it has to show and move and transform. And that somehow made his spirit feel so much more at peace. In fact, he hung a little wind chime up on his porch so that he could hear when the breath of life all across the earth blew, danced, howled, whatever, so that he could feel, not with his fist, but with his open hand, feel the movement of something he could not hold going through his fingers. But you know, the truth is, inside his house, he actually paid for a rather large oil painting of those bananas. And there they were, shining yellow against a black velvet ground. And under it was a plaque, and it said, "Never forget." And he would never forget. Because you see, in the wide expanse of time, oh, forever to forever, yeah, there was one tiny little grain of sand, this big, that's big. And that little grain of sand was the whole of Ichabod's life. And within that life, there was a tiny sliver, a slip, an envelope of time, which was one particular summer when Ichabod witnessed the miracle of 3 noble bananas saving the life of a stranger. And the beauty and the majesty and the sacredness of it all, he found he could keep, not in his fist, but in his heart, which is where it lived forever.
Oh my gosh, Vicky, that is just incredible. It's just wonderful. I mean, Genevieve has said that's our Vicky. Always delightful and delicious stories, but also profound. I mean, awesome. I mean, there is the Bambi and the hand grenade. There's Tinkerbell being killed with the fly swatter, and then there's the Grim Reaper who uses a credit card to Jimmy open the front door. I mean, these are just amazing visuals.
Just wrong. Don't do that. Yeah.
And great facial expressions. It's fabulous. Well, I mean, lost for words. Thank you.
Just to let you know, something you can do that I did for this story. I have a friend who teaches writing, and one of the practices is that he gives people a word, and they have 10 minutes to write with that word in the story. And I said, well, that's interesting. And I said, so what kind of words? And he told me, well, banana. Come up with a story about banana. And I didn't at the time, but then Sunday I sat with my chai and I came up with 2 banana stories, and that was one of them. So it's just a thought. Ask somebody to give you a noun, and then see where it goes. What the heck.
Well, thank you. I'll do
Okay.
that.
So I'm going to hold on And there you were.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I think it's almost time for our break. After the break, we'll have Genevieve, and if there's time, I shall tell a story, which is in a story in progress. The prompt, the question that we'll ask everyone to answer is, what is your favorite summer fruit, and what do you like to make with it? So,
So 5 minutes?
yeah,
Say
well,
5 minutes?
yeah. So let's come back in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Great, welcome back after the break. So now we have a question to ask you. It is, what is your favorite summer fruit, and what do you like to make with it? And so we say our name when we introduce ourselves and where we're from. So I will start. My name is Katie Mangan. I live in Santa Rosa. And oh, it has to be black currant. And my mother used to make it called black currant fool. So basically, you just puree the black currants and you mix it with cream and probably sugar, and it's absolutely fabulous. So there you go. That's mine. So, should I ask Rose?
Okay. I like fresh strawberries, and I have a recipe for a fresh strawberry pie with lots of whipped cream. Not the stuff you buy in the can in the store. It's got to be the cream that you get your mixer out and whip it up yourself, kind of a thing, and that goes on the top of it. And the second thing I like is fresh raspberries on homemade yogurt.
Oh, delicious. Okay, Beth.
You're muted. You're
You're
muted.
muted.
There's just beautiful pictures of all that good stuff. We have so many deer now that they don't leave me any of my berries. I used to get the big Alola berries, the big ones, and that would have been my favorite. But now I'm happy with watermelon because watermelon's pretty sturdy, and when you hit a good one, it just bursts the flavor in your mouth, and it's so refreshing. And I don't like to turn it, if I have some for a smoothie maybe, but mostly just the crisp watermelon, and in little triangles, so you could just take little bites after one after the other. Oh, I'm Beth Wakely, and I live in Sebastopol. Yeah.
So Vicky, will you tell us what your favorite summer fruit is, and what do you like to make with it?
Okay. About 5-6 years ago, I mulched around my rose bushes with some homemade compost and ended up with a wonderful nectarine tree that came from the compost. And the nectarines are incredible. So every summer, at least once, I do a pie crust, a sweet pie crust with lots of buttery stuff, and then slice the nectarines, and then put sliced almonds, and then I put a glaze, and then I put turbino. Is that what it's called? That sugar that glistens, and it's heaven. I mean, yeah, it's what can I say? Yeah.
Meg, you're muted.
Me? Okay. I'm Meg Brown, and I live in Forestville. And much as I do love the stone fruits, and they're only good during the summer, in my opinion, my favorite has got to be the strawberries that you can buy at the little stands. There's one actually between here and Ukiah. And whenever we're going up that way in the summertime, I have to stop because the strawberry jam is very popular at my house, and now I have these 3 little grandchildren, strawberry jam on their peanut butter and jelly. There's nothing better. So strawberries have to take the cake for me.
Great. Tina, what is your favorite summer fruit? And
Yeah, well, that's a really tough one because I'm crazy about all of the summer fruits, plums, peaches, apricots. Some of them I grow, but some of them I don't. Some of them I have to purchase. But right now it's berry season. And The berries are coming on very fast. This is blackberries, not the wild one, but what we determine they're called
Boysenberry.
boysenberries and raspberries. So really both are coming on baskets a day. And so it's more than I can eat. And so I do eat what I can as I'm picking. You know, you're picking along and you get to one that's a little soft. Well, you eat that one and put the other ones in the basket. But what I'm doing is freezing the too much fruit because in the wintertime, it's so fabulous to be able to pull out a handful of frozen berries and with that famous fruit, the banana, which one of its best reincarnations is a smoothie, then you make a berry smoothie in the middle of winter and you can live for another day.
Thank you. Sharon, you're muted, but can you unmute and tell us what your favorite summer fruit is and what would you like to make with it?
That's such a hard one because when I hear each of these things, I think, oh yeah, that's the one. Oh no, that's the one. No, that's really the one. You know, I had an overachieving peach tree, and I used to do a lot of salsa, peach salsa, and peach chutney, and I loved that. But I think my favorite is boysenberry pie.
Mm.
And the recipe that I like has a cheesecake filling at the bottom, and then the berries on the top, and you will live another day. You will live happily ever after if you do that.
Wonderful, thank you. Walter, what is your favorite summer fruit?
Strawberries, strawberry ice cream. We've been making ice cream since my son was about 6 years old.
Oh.
And we make ice cream all year long. Different flavors, different styles, peaches, strawberries, chocolate fudge, chocolate and vanilla. We're ice cream freaks. So fresh strawberries and fresh strawberry ice cream, there's nothing like it.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Belvella, can you tell us what your favorite summer fruit is and what you like to make with it?
Yeah, I'm Valvla and I'm currently up on Cobb, and my favorite summer fruit, because so many of them have already been named, I'm gonna go with blackberries. And my favorite way to eat those is right off the blackberry bush and without too much juice dripping down, hopefully.
So good. Thank you for all your wonderful comments in the chat. Just hysterical and wonderful. Great comments. And it's lovely, lovely, lovely to have you with us again. We miss you. So come back soon. Renu, what is your favorite summer fruit?
Well, practically all fruits are my favorite, but we do have mangoes growing in our garden, and both the varieties are very sweet. And one of them actually is slightly sour too, which I love. When there are too many of them ripening at the same time, then I make either milkshake or ice cream, and the vegan variety, not without any dairy. Either use almond milk or cashew milk, and it turns out really well. I love it.
Sounds delicious. Yum. Thank you.
Thank
Shilpa, what is your favorite summer fruit and what do you like to make with it?
Tough choice, because in India we have all types of melons during summer. So be it watermelon, muskmelon, spoiled for choices. And yes, but my favorite fruit is mango, the king of fruits. And what I like to make is mango shake, mango salsa with it, and mango cheesecake.
Mm.
Oh, that sounds fabulous. Yes, thank you. Genevieve, what is your favorite summer fruit?
Well, like so many of you, it's hard to choose. I love pineapple. I love stone fruit, especially a perfectly ripe peach or nectarine. But I think the ripeness is the key, because whatever you have, if it's perfectly ripe, it's going to be so delicious. But since, I don't know if it was Renu and Shilpa mentioned mangoes, quickly went back in my mind to 1977 when I was over in India. And I remember craving some kind of fruit or something, and it became mango season, and the sellers would come with a big old, a horse cart with a whole tray, back part piled with mangoes. And that was before we had so much available here. And they would say, ek kg or do kg. So do you want a 1 kilogram or 2 kilo mango? And I went, whoa, I mean, because they were hefty. And they were ripe.
Delicious. Thank you. Marion, can you tell us what your favorite summer fruit is and what do you like to make with it?
Yes, I like white peaches, fresh off the tree. So we have a garden here. I planted a peach tree. It's not doing very well, but it will produce like 2 peaches. And if the squirrels get them first, most often. But last year I caught one that they didn't take away, and fresh off the tree. And yeah, when it's ripe, that's it. The squirrels are in there, so I gotta get in fast. And I just like the juiciness of them and the sweetness, just plain off the tree.
Oh, that sounds so good. Thank you, Marion. It's good to have you with us. All right, so I think I have everyone. Everyone has spoken. So if we could all mute ourselves, and then I'll ask Meg and Vicky to give us any announcements that they have.
Okay. I'll go ahead and start. Vicky can fill in all the gaps. I really only have one thing that I know of. So anybody else who has some information about storytelling and whatnot going on, please feel free. But the genre storytelling is going to be on July 16th, and it's humorous and laughing stories. So I think it sounds perfect for July, middle of summer. Wonderful, wonderful topic. And it's from 7 to 8. If you are a SAC member, it's a freebie. If not, it's $5, but it's always worth it. So you will be able to get the information on the SAC website if you don't get it through your email already. And I would encourage you to try some genre. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So that's really all I have for today.
And let me add to that, the August genre is personal stories, and our very own Genevieve is telling in August. Yay! And if you have an interest in telling, please let me know on a genre, because I need to nominate you, and that will be that. And there was office hours. Also, we do have office hours, and that's the first Tuesday of every month from 7 to 8:30, and you get a half an hour slot, and you can practice your stories. You can try. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why a lot of ways you can use it. You can find out if your singing comes across. You can find out if musical instruments come across on Zoom. You can ask questions. So it's not just practicing a story, it's actually seeing how it comes out on Zoom. So that's it for me.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So I think we're back to stories. And so our next teller will be Shilpa. Please welcome Shilpa to the stage.
Wait a minute. Sorry, I'm finding her. I am scrolling along here.
Don't worry.
There we go. Sorry.
Don't apologize.
There we are.
Well, hello everyone. Good morning. Good evening. Well, it's a good morning for me, but for Martha, it was almost good night. Old Martha, she lived on the top of a hill in a beautiful cottage. And every night, she would sit in her rocking chair and card the wool. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. And there, Right next to her chimney was a dry fish. And every night, when she would yawn for 3 times, she would get up, pick up her butcher knife, and cut a chunk from that fish, dried fish, and have it as her midnight snack and go off to sleep. She had eaten so much of that fish that now only one eye was left. And that's why she started calling that fish one eye fish very fondly. Now, one day, a few robbers they decided that this old lady has got quite some riches and she's sold and we don't think that she deserves that. So why not let those riches be in the right hands? Yes. So that particular night, 3 robbers decided to go and rob her after she goes off to sleep. And they hid there down near a tree. At night, after completing her usual routine, the old lady, she sat on a rocking chair. And she started carding the wool. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. And there, the chief ordered the first robber to go and check whether she has slept or not. Slowly and slowly, he climbed the wall and peeped it from a small hole near the chimney. Oh, the old lady was sitting and doing her work. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. Ah, that, here comes the first one. The moment the first robber hears this, I think she has seen me, and he runs down. She has got some powers. When I was peeping there, she said, the first one has come. I think we should go back. Oh, shut up. You go. And he sends the second one. The second one goes up there and peeps from that chimney. And what was the old lady doing? Click, clack, click, clack. And now here comes the second one. And the moment the second robber hears this, oh God, he got so scared and he ran. Chief, he's right, he's right. He, she even saw me. I think we should run. Oh, shut up, both of you, you cowards. Let me go and see. Now, let me tell you something. This chief, he lost one of his eyes in an encounter. And so he had only one eye, one good eye. And that's why he was known as One-Eyed Chief. So now, One-Eyed Chief, he walks there and he peeps there from the chimney. And what was the old lady doing? Yes, her job. Click, clack, click, clack, and now, here comes the third one. She keeps her wool down and gets up from the chair. You one-eyed. Now, I think I will have you tonight. Where's my butcher knife? And she started walking towards the chimney where that fish was hanging right next to the chimney. And the moment One-Eyed Chief hears this, they both were right. She knows my name also. Oh, no, I think she's a witch. And he runs away. Yes, yes, yes. You both of you are right. I think we should run. And the 3 of them, they ran as fast as their strong legs could take them, never to come back to that old lady's cottage. And here, the old lady, she picks up a butcher knife, chomps a chunk from that dried fish, gobbles her midnight snack, and goes off to sleep. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Shilpa. That was a wonderful story, so beautifully told. And I love the woman rocking back and forth in her chair. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, and now, Genevieve, are you all ready to
Yeah.
tell your story?
Yeah, thank you for giving me that time.
Oh, you're welcome. Perfect.
Among other things, I started cooking my compost by mistake because I keep it in a tin on the stove, and I turned off on the wrong burner. Ready? Okay. This is a work in progress. It hasn't gotten a lot of work, but it is a preview. This is beginning to develop the story I will be telling in September. So it's personal stories. The framers of the Declaration of Independence said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." 7 years later, Lincoln reminded us that those fathers had brought forth a new nation dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, and posed the question whether this nation, involved in a great civil war, would retain that government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Another 7 years ago, again, later, I was born. I wasn't born in that country. I was born in Mexico. My mother was born in Mexico City, of Mexican parents, who had some indigenous mix in them, but primarily had originally come from Spain several centuries before. My father was born of northern Mexican immigrants to the United States who moved there during the Mexican Revolution. But he was born in El Paso. By dint of that, I am, at least so far, an American citizen. I had dual citizenship, but back when I was a teenager, I had to renounce that citizenship. American laws at the time did not allow for loyalty to two countries. And I remember taking the oath to protect and defend the principles of the United States of America and how much it meant. I grew up in a border town, and as a result, I had the beautiful mix of Mexican and American cultures. There's no doubt that the East Side tended to look blonde and the West Side tended to look dark-haired. And yet when we would mix in the stores and so forth, it seemed like, at least to me, everybody was of the same family. When I got older, I moved to California. I began to notice certain things. I remember visiting my sister in Southern California and addressing people that I pretty much was sure were Spanish speakers in Spanish, and they would respond only in English, if at all. Here in Northern California, I would be welcomed and greeted in Spanish whenever I would speak in Spanish to, let's say, people who would be in restaurants and so forth around me. But employees in Southern California had been forbidden to speak English. I had not been aware that there were this kind of disparities and separations. But I became an interpreter. And as an interpreter, I became aware of more and more disparities. I remember being troubled when a judge would tell somebody who was clearly an immigrant rather than native born, look at me. When in their countries, it's a sign of respect not to look someone in the eyes. I remember a bailiff, the exception. Most of the bailiffs were really kind and good people that I knew. But this particular bailiff, curiously, a Hispanic immigrant from a couple of generations before, yelling at someone in the back of the courtroom, why don't you speak English? And so my eyes became a little bit more and more open to the disparities that exist in our country, despite the founding principles that were set forth 2 centuries ago. I met a judge who once invited me to share any moments that I could remember that would illustrate those points had I been subjected to any kind of unequal treatment. I did send her back a recording, the story of how my brother, when he went to military school because he was a hellraiser and needed to get tamped down, how he was called the Crisco Kid because he was a greaser. The Cisco Kid was at that time a program on television, but they chose to call him the Crisco Kid. I told him how my sisters in Midland, Odessa had been at a restaurant, and when someone overheard them talking Spanish, pointed to a sign on the wall, and you can still see this sign, an image of this sign online somewhere, that said, "We don't serve dogs or Mexicans." I can tell you that one time I was with a group of fellow interpreters at a local restaurant and had been waiting for a long time and noticed that a couple of other groups were served before us, groups that had not come with a reservation. And I realized maybe it was because all of us were actively talking in Spanish and certainly could wait. But I'm well aware that I actually have had very, very few instances of that kind of treatment. I just hadn't been aware of how different my life was. I always assumed I am Latina, I'm Mexican American, we're all one. And I even thought that I was dark skinned. One day I was at a meeting at an organization that was seeking to increase the diversity of its volunteer group in this particular function as advisors. And I sat there in the meeting as everybody was saying, yeah, somebody said, does anybody notice something about this group? And everybody's saying, oh yeah, there's no diversity, there's nobody of a different culture and so forth. And then I, with some pride, actually said, eh. And they said, yes, Genevieve. And I said, let them know. No, I am here. I am part of that diversity. I was born in Mexico. I was raised in a Mexican bicultural family. My parents were from Mexico. And the leader of the group, a very intelligent woman who I truly respect, turned to me and said, but Genevieve, you pass for white. I was shocked. But I had to realize that that was not necessarily an insult. And it wasn't untrue. I do pass for white. And that explains why I have not been the recipient of any kind of callous mistreatment, assumptions. I had sought to bring to my group an understanding of the assumptions that they were making, and I myself had grown up with a lot of assumptions. That explained this. I had noticed that whenever I met someone who was a native Spanish speaker, especially from Latin America, and I immediately launched into Spanish, they would say, Señora, ¿cómo es que usted habla tan bien el español? Ma'am, how is it that you speak Spanish so well? And I would go into the description of my family's history and blah, 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 Guadalajara, moving to the United States, and aren't we all brothers? And we're all the same. And then, if I were in a group of primarily English speakers, and I, for some reason, launched into Spanish, they would say, how is it that you speak Spanish so well? And occasionally, not so much anymore, but back then, they say, funny, You don't look Mexican. And I would launch into the same explanation that Guadalajara and moving across the border and El Paso, Texas, blah, 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 California. I just had not realized what that meant because I had not really understood what passing for white granted me. Technically, I am white. A lot of my heritage is from Spain. But I never saw myself as anything but 100% Mexican, which I am. Mexican American now, adopted. My father used to instill in us a pride in our heritage and the country that had welcomed us, his country, since he was born here. But he allowed us and he raised us always recognizing the value of both of them. And he would often repeat to us the words of the first president of Mexico, Benito Juarez, who said, "Peace is to be found in respect for the rights of others." I had been muddling through this throughout the pandemic, which is when this particular person had told me, "You pass for white." And during the whole DEI post, Black Lives Matter, Brown Lives Matter, Lives of Color Matter. And I was so proud to see this movement come up. But I was wrestling with it just like many of us were, who are in a position like me. Who am I really? What is my identity? Where do I stand? Am I really not exactly Mexican? Am I really not exactly American? But the answer is what is in my heart. And what is in my heart loves passionately what this country represents or has represented. So I finally got a best understanding of this. I got a lesson in deep empathy, which I thought I had all along, but I had been missing a key piece. I was at Grocery Outlet. I always love to go there, not only because of the stuff that you can find at a very good price, but because the staff is invariably very kind and fairly happy. And of course, if there's a staff member that speaks Spanish, I engage to them in conversation with them in Spanish. So one day, the cashier seemed to me that she spoke Spanish, so I started talking to her about what a lovely day it was in Spanish. And she turned to me and she said, "Señora, ¿cómo es que usted habla tan bien el español?" "Ma'am, how is it that you speak Spanish so well?" So I went back to the whole thing about Guadalajara and El Paso and the whole thing, California, boo, boo, boo. She said to me, "Qué suerte, señora. You are so fortunate, ma'am." And that is when I realized that only because her skin was darker than mine, she had lived a life of difficulty, of doubt, of disparagement, of struggle, of fighting to keep her place. And I had just sailed along, saying, "Yo también soy Mexicano-Americana. I too am Mexican-American."
Thank you, Genevieve. That's such a powerful, powerful story, and very personal, but also universal. And you are so fortunate. And it's so hard sometimes, I think, to accept something like that. It just seems so unfair. There's so many levels to this. And thank you for sharing it. And I'm so pleased that you're going to be sharing it on a wider stage at the genre. So thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think if there are no more stories, I could share mine. It is another story in progress. So we'll see. I'm going to time it where it goes. Okay. All right. So Eduardo ran away from home when he was a teenager, and he spent a very difficult 4 years living sort of hand to mouth, all different work, job situations. But finally, he found his way to an abbey, and he was there for almost 2 years, and he really loved the sort of the schedules that they were on, if you can call it that. He really enjoyed it. But then he heard some travelers talking about a tropical forest. And it was called the Emerald Forest. And from their descriptions, it was too good to be true. And he thought, I've just got to go there. And so he told the abbot why he was leaving. And the abbot, of course, was horrified and tried to dissuade him, but he couldn't. And so finally, he gave Eduardo his blessing, and as a parting gift, gave him a very sturdy, handsome pair of sandals. And Eduardo was thrilled, and he said, I can walk 1,000,000 miles in these sandals. And off he went. But the closer he came to the Emerald Forest, the more apprehensive he was, because it was massive. It was this huge, bright green glow there on the horizon. And if he couldn't see the greenness, it was because it was covered in thick, dark thunderclouds. And when he got to the forest, he found a guide. And so the guide took him by canoe very slowly through the waterways, and they went deep, deep, deep into the forest until the guide said that was as far as he would go. And if Eduardo took the path, it would eventually lead him to a village, a large village. And so Eduardo set off on the path. But before he reached the village, he came to a clearing. Not a big clearing, but a clearing. And in the clearing was a hut, a shelter, and sitting in front of the hut was a small white-haired man. And the man saw Eduardo, and Eduardo felt the power of this man, and he just felt like he had to walk toward him. And as soon as he got closer, the man started to shout at him and pointed to his feet. And Eduardo thought he wanted his sandals. And he explained, no, 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 they're a gift. But eventually, Eduardo took off the sandals and placed them in front of the old man. And the old man spat on those sandals and picked them up and threw them into the forest. And then he got up and began to walk away. Well, Eduardo immediately followed him. And he was surprised because he thought with his bare feet on the ground that it would be really painful. But the shaman, the old man, the shaman, was walking at such a fast pace that Eduardo's feet hardly touched the ground. And if it did, he could feel the energy from the ground. And he could just run faster and faster and keep up with this very lithe old man. And they went on and on until finally they came to this huge rock. And the shaman walked around the rock until he found this sort of slit in the rock. And he began to put his arm inside the slit and worm his way into it until only his hand was left. And Eduardo grasped his hand, and the shaman pulled him into the rock. And eventually they came out in a large cavern. Eduardo couldn't see anything because the cavern was filled with raindrops, with water, and he could hear the thunder of water. It must have been a waterfall. And he lost contact with the shaman. And he wandered blindly until he realized that his toes were dangling over the edge of this great abyss. And he knew, had he been wearing those sandals, he would never have noticed that. And it was the shaman who was behind him who very carefully drew him back from the abyss. And Eduardo followed the old man as he climbed up a rock. They were like spiders, hand over hand. And they went up and finally came out the very top of this rock. And they were above the tree line. And they could see for miles and miles. And it was now dark, and the sky was studded with stars. And on the rock floor, there was some markings. And in the center, there was a circle. And the shaman told Eduardo to lie down in the circle. But first, the shaman put his hand on Eduardo's heart. And Eduardo put his hand on the shaman's heart. And in doing so, they could understand what each other was saying and thinking. And Eduardo was instructed to lie down in this circle and to go to sleep and to dream. And in the morning, the shaman would ask him about his dreams. Well, Eduardo lay down, but he could not sleep. And he could hear the shaman snoring happily away. But eventually he did fall asleep. And when he woke up in the morning, the sun was up, and there was the old man looking at him. Now, Eduardo realized he hadn't dreamed, or if he had, he didn't remember the dreams. And so he suggested that the shaman tell his dream first. And he was delighted to, because he was so excited. And the dream apparently was profound. And Eduardo couldn't understand everything that he was saying. And he just listened. And when the man had finished, it was Eduardo's turn. And he took a deep breath and he looked at the shaman in the eyes and said, "I didn't dream." And to his surprise, the shaman said nothing. And it was as if they were waiting. And eventually, 4 young warriors arrived. They were probably Eduardo's age. They were from the same tribe, but they all looked a little differently. They all had this energy of an animal. There was one who seemed like a monkey, moved like a monkey. There was a snake, kind of scary. There was spider. But the scariest of all was the warrior who held the Black Panther medicine, the magic. He even had a Black Panther tooth hung around his neck. And the shaman instructed them all to lie down and to go to sleep and to dream. And again, Eduardo was placed in the center, and these 4 warriors were around him. And so the night passed, and they all dreamed except Eduardo. And in the morning, the 4 warriors, they each told their dreams, and the dreams were, like the shaman's, were very profound. And then they all looked at Eduardo, and he had to again say, "I did not dream." And the warriors were shocked. And it was then that the shaman explained that Eduardo was the dreamer. Eduardo was the man was the one who allowed them all to dream. And Eduardo, as he couldn't share a dream, began to share about his life, about how his family had dismissed him, about his grandparents. And the saddest thing for him of all was to tell them that his grandmother, who he loved and adored, had taught him sacred ways of the feminine, and he hadn't respected this trust because he had used some sacred berries to help him in his journey when he ran away from home. And these berries were designed for the women, but he used them to suppress his appetite and his need for water. And he explained to the warriors how he had crossed this huge high desert plain. And he told them all the stories that had happened to him after he'd left his home. And they had the huge respect for him, as he had huge respect for them. And they realized that they were all brothers. And so when they parted, the four warriors went the way they had come, down back into the rock. And the shaman smiled at Eduardo, and he said, "My son, let me show you the ways of the forest." And Eduardo was so thrilled. And the shaman asked him to follow him. And the shaman walked to the edge of this rock, and then very gracefully swan dive down, down, down into the forest. And Eduardo followed him. But out of the corner of his eye at one point, he saw coming down this enormous rock, there was a black panther, there was a spider, there was a snake, there was a monkey. And he realized that these exquisite beings, these extraordinary beings, were now going back to the forest floor to lead their ordinary lives. Blessings, abundance, and healing to you all. So there we go. We've had a wonderful evening of stories. So cool. Do you all want to kind of unmute? I want to thank you all, the tellers. Rose, thank you. Renew, Sharon, Vicky, Genevieve, Shilpa, great stories. And thank you to all our listeners. Let's give them a big hand. We have Meg Brown, Beth Wakely, Vina, Belvella, who gave us all those wonderful comments in the chat. Walter, thank you, and Marion. It's been so cool to have you all here together. It's just so nice and so lovely for Valvella to be with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
What's the date of the next meeting, next gathering?
Hold on, let me tell you.
Pretty please.
The second Tuesday of the month.
12th. Okay, Walter, August the 12th.
I got it as August 14th.
Oh, it's the second Tuesday. So it says the second Tuesday. Are you getting all the emails though, right? Are you, Walter?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
So 12th.
Wow.
Okay. Really 12th.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Vicky.
Well, Thank you all. What a delight. Every story was so different.
Oh,
What makes
incredible
ours-
stories. Thank you.
It was very cool. All right, well, good night. Do you want to stop the recording?
Yes.
Be well, everybody.
Thank you.
Shilpa, what time is it over there?